AI is not just a technology shift. It's a pressure test for the emotional system of the company. It forces questions many organizations have avoided for years. And if a leadership system cannot hold discomfort, it cannot hold transformation. Listen for those lines. We need more alignment. Let's take it step by step. We need more data. We want to make sure the team is ready. But repeated often enough, they usually signal something else. Fear is present, power is being protected, identity is under pressure, and decisions are being delayed. Emotional debt hurts revenue because it makes people protect themselves when they should be protecting the business. People protect what they know when the alternative is undefined. AI is making it harder to hide. Let's start with something many leaders feel, but very few say clearly. AI initiatives stall because the organization is carrying emotional debt. Fear, ego, territorialism, legacy pride, not the polished emotions that show up in leadership books. The hidden ones. The ones that sit underneath decisions, shape behavior, and quietly determine what the organization can and cannot change. Every company has financial debt. Every company has technical debt. But there is another kind of debt that can stop change before it becomes real. I call that emotional debt. And if a leadership system cannot hold discomfort, it cannot hold transformation. That's why so many AI projects do not fall apart at rollout. They stall at the first real decision. AI is making it harder to hide because emotional debt is one of the reasons decision ownership stays vague for too long. And this is what this episode is about. What emotional debt really is, what it looks like inside the company, why it gets in the way of AI, how it affects revenue, and what stronger leaders do differently. A few years ago, organizations could hide emotional debt behind complexity. They could say, this is just how enterprise works. It's a matrix. It takes time. We need more alignment. And that language usually gave them cover. AI changes that environment. It surfaces patterns. It shows where decisions keep stalling, where hands-off keep breaking, where teams override signals, where outcomes still depend on individuals, where leaders delay uncomfortable calls. And when those patterns become visible, the emotional system underneath them become visible too. Because emotional debt is not abstract. It's the pressure sitting underneath decisions long before anyone says it out loud. So this is bigger than AI adoption. This is not really an AI problem. It's a leadership problem that AI exposes faster. Not long ago, I worked with a company that wanted to redesign how revenue decisions were made across the business. On paper, they were ready. Budget was there, talent was there, the tech stack was solid, leadership support was there, the urgency was real. But inside the business, another system was running. Trust was low. Some leaders felt exposed, some felt replaceable, some feared losing influence. So every meeting looked productive and every decision got slower. We need more alignment. Let's take it step by step. We should validate this first. We need more data. Let's run a pilot. We want to make sure the team is ready. On the surface, that sounded responsible. Underneath, it was protection. Fear dressed up as a governance. Because AI doesn't just change workflow. It changes relevance, authority. It changes who gets trusted and who gets challenged. And the organization reacts the way many do under pressure. More reviews, more committees, more people in the room, more cautions around every move. Everything looked managed. Nothing important moved. Later, the failure got explained in a clean corporate language. Low adoption, lack of clarity, stakeholders alignment, challenges, but that was not the real story. The project stalled because emotional debt was already inside the system. AI didn't create the problem, it exposed it. And here is the part most leaders miss. Emotional debt is not about people being emotional. It's about the pressure people carry into decisions the business still treats as rational. Emotional debt grows when accountability is unclear. Incentives pull in different directions. Leaders avoid discomfort. Power gets protected instead of redesigned. Performance gets measured in a way that rewards politics. This is why emotional debt becomes dangerous in AI initiatives. AI demands clarity. It demands structure. It demands decisions. Emotional debt resists all three. Let me define this clearly. Emotional debt is the pressure that builds up inside the organization when people repeatedly avoid the hard things they already know need to happen. Hard conversations, clear consequences, visible trade-offs, uncomfortable ownership, decisions that close the gap instead of extending it. Over time, that pressure builds. It becomes unspoken tension, guarded behavior, fear of exposure, avoidance wrapped in a process language. Eventually, the organization reaches a point where changing anything important triggers more internal resistance than the system can absorb. That's what makes emotional debt so destructive. When AI enters that environment, it doesn't just introduce a tool. It disturbs the balance the organization has been using to protect itself. So the organization protects that balance, usually without saying so, systematically. Most emotional resistance doesn't show up as one big issue. It shows up in patterns. But when you step back, it usually comes from three places: ego protecting identity, territorialism protecting control, legacy pride protecting the old system. Different form, same effect. Decisions slow down the moment change starts threatening something people are attached to. Ego protecting the old system. AI doesn't just introduce a new way of working. It can expose that the old way was slower, fragmented, overly manual, or too dependent on a few people. That is uncomfortable, especially for leaders who build credibility, status, or authority inside that system. So instead of questioning the model, the organization starts defending it. And some of the most important questions getting asked. Why are we doing in this way at all? Why did this depend on individuals so long? Why was this accepted as normal? Why did we reward effort more than outcome? Those questions do not just challenge the system. They challenge the people who build their authority inside it. So they get avoided. And then it starts showing up at the system level. Then territorialism protects control. When workflow starts changing, people protect their ground. Who gets involved? Who gets asked? Who still has a say? They do not say, do not go around us. They say we need to align stakeholders. This affects other functions. We need stronger governance. We need to socialize it first. It sounds professional, but often it means keep us involved, do not shift control, do not move this without us. So the work doesn't stop. It gets crowded. More people, more reviews, more coordinations, and decision speed drop. Now, this connects to something deeper. Legacy pride. You hear this in the simple lines. This worked 10 years. This is how we build the business. That's how we always done it. It sounds like a confidence, but often it's attachment. Because changing the model doesn't just mean changing a process. It means admitting the old way no longer fits the world the business is in now. And that it's hard for the people who build credibility and authority inside it. So instead of asking what needs to change, the organization starts protecting what used to work. None of these patterns look dramatic on their own, but together, they slow decisions across the system. And that is where the real problem starts. Because AI depends on decisions, not awareness, not dashboards, not insights, decisions. And when ego, control, or legacy gets protected, decisions slow down, even when everything looks aligned on the surface. Now, why AI triggered this so hard? AI is not just a technology shift. It's a pressure test for the emotional system of the company. It forced questions many organizations have avoided for years. What is my value if tasks are automated? What is leadership if the system sees risk earlier than I do? What does it mean if our workflow was never designed to scale? What does it mean if our decisions were political instead of logical? That is why the reaction is so strong. AI doesn't create all of that tension from nothing. It exposes what was already unstable. And once visibility rises, the room for denial gets smaller. Now, what strong leadership do differently? Some leaders can hold this pressure, others can't. The difference is not intelligence. It is whether they can lead clearly when emotional pressure rises inside the system or not. Strong leaders do 5 things. They make fear discussable. They do not shame it, they do not hide it, they surface it. Because hidden fear always finds another route into the system, usually as a delay or sabotage. Then they protect outcomes, not ego. The moment leadership starts protecting status, old logic survives. Strong leaders protect the redesign. Then they define ownership through decisions. No org chart, not vogue roles, decisions. Because if power is unclear, territorialism wins. Then they stop visibility from turning into blame. If AI visibility becomes punishment, adoption collapses. Stronger leaders treat visibility as a signal, something to work on, not something to weaponize. They redesign roles on purpose. AI change roles. If the new role logic is not designed clearly, resistance becomes rational. People protect what they know when the alternative is undefined. Now let's connect this back to revenue. Emotional debt hurts revenue because it makes people protect themselves when they should be protecting the business. That pressure shows up in decisions. Hard decisions get delayed, risk gets softened, ownership gets blurred, and revenue starts being shaped less by evidence and more by avoidance. And let me be clear. This is about strong systems. Emotions will always exist inside organizations. The real question is whether they quietly drive decisions or whether the system is strong enough to contain them. That's the leadership work. Most organizations do not stall because change is impossible. They stall because clarity has an emotional cost, and they do not want to pay it. They want transformation outcome without transformation discomfort. That trade doesn't work. AI doesn't create emotional debt. It exposes it. If you want a fast diagnostic, listen for those lines. We need more alignment. Let's take it step by step. We need more data. We want to make sure the team is ready. We should revisit this next quarter. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. But repeated often enough, they usually signal something else. Fear is present, power is being protected, identity is under pressure, and decisions are being delayed. That's the real test. If decisions keep getting delayed, AI may improve visibility, but it still will not change the outcome. This is what AI4Sales Edge is built for, showing where execution fails, what decision logic is actually driving outcomes, and how AI is changing the business only when the system is designed to decide. I'm Jelena, this is AI4Sales Edge. Real stories, real results, no fluff.